There are three types of people in this hobby, and those three types control everything we do. There's Group A, there's Group B, and there's Group C. And the question of the week is, which group do you belong to? That's what we're going to find out in this week's episode. Hello everyone, and welcome back to EDI Sports Show. We do this show every single Friday, 6 p.m. on the East Coast, 3 p.m. on the West Coast. If you all love sports and sports cards, hit the subscribe button right now. That's right, hit it right now. We're going to send the YouTube algorithm into shock because you're going to hit the like button and hit subscribe. That the like button does it all. So anyway, this week's show is all about three groups of people in the hobby. You can see it, three buckets, okay? So the question is, which bucket do you belong to? Okay, so that's the question that you want to be looking at. So here we go. We got three buckets. So let's do bucket number one. All right, you ready? Here we go. Bucket number one is the investor. Bucket number two is the hoarder. And bucket number three is the pure collector. Now, which one of those buckets do you fit into? Do you fit into the investor bucket? Do you fit into the collector bucket, or do you fit into the hoarder bucket? Now, for me, I want you to understand my progression. Now, I started in the hobby way back in 1983. That's when my father bought me my first pack, and I pulled a 1983 Wade Boggs rookie. Now, who knew back then that I would be involved in such a way? But anyway, I became a sports card dealer around 1986, 87, like in that time frame. I can't remember exactly what was my first show, but around there, around 86, 87. And so what I want to make sure everybody understands is my progression was basically starting in the investor bucket. Then I moved into the hoarder bucket because I had accumulated 8 million cards. And now I'm in the pure collector category, okay? So that's where I'm at. I'm in that last bucket, the pure collector category. I'm doing a 500 card challenge, trying to get my PC down to 500 cards, which is really hard to do. I'm probably not going to make it. I'm probably going to have, if I look at it, I'm probably going to have close to like 700 to 800 cards, which is not bad. Again, under 1,000. I think that's probably a healthy collection. If you haven't run 1,000 cards, I think that's about as much as you can handle because of the fact that how can you display all this stuff? How can you carry all this stuff with you? And that seems to be the biggest issue with the hobby, is that a lot of people are just sort of buying a lot of cards without really thinking about the back end of like, what do I do? Now, the reason that I decided to do this episode, the reason that I decided to go with the three groups in the hobby is because someone reached out to me on IG. And if you're not familiar with my IG, this is it, EDI Sports Cards. Go over there. You can tag the pinned comment or the pinned post, which is Teach Me Sales Skills. If you follow me, hit the like button and comment 5 pillars. I will send you the free PDF in the DMs. I've already done that for several people. If you want to do that, do it right now. Anyway, the point being, this is the point. The point being is that I started in the investor category. When you are a sports card dealer, you are sort of acting like an investor. And what I want to make very, very clear is the reason that I don't believe that sports card investing is an investment, a real investment, is because you don't actually look at your investment portfolio as a sports card investor. No one seems to do that. You seem to buy and hold, and then that's it. You hold, which makes you a hoarder. As an investor, you have to sell your cards. That's a true investor. An investor sells their stuff. When you buy stocks, you don't hold the stocks forever. You hold them until they go up, and then you sell off the profit. And then when the stocks come back down, you reevaluate the stock and see, should I reinvest what I've already made back into that company? And then you make more money. If your decision is no, I should probably sell the rest of it at this point. Again, the rest is break even, then you get your cash back, but you've already taken profits off the table. A lot of you guys don't really know how to do investing, and so that's the problem, is you're buying cards and you're holding them forever, and that's not an investor, that's a hoarder. The minute you hold your cards and you're never going to sell them, that's a hoarder. So anyway, someone reached out to me and basically had said, like, I don't agree with what you're saying, but are you talking about this type of a person? And that got me thinking, maybe I'm not being very clear about who I'm talking about. So that's why I said maybe we need to have this whole video on there's 3 groups of people in the hobby, and you have to decide which group you fit into. Now, I'm a pure collector, okay? So that's the point, is that I want everybody to understand. See, I'm a pure collector at this point in my journey, which means that when I talk, I'm talking from a pure collector standpoint, unless I'm speaking specifically to investors or to hoarders. Now, investors is basically just an umbrella term for sports card dealers, for flippers, and then for anybody that follows Jeff Wilson. Those are the people that I'm talking about when I'm talking about investors. But you have to sell your cards in order to be an investor. If you don't sell your cards, you're not an investor. You're in bucket number 2, whether you want to deny that, whether you want to get mad at me, whether you want to write comments on my channel. It doesn't matter what you say. Reality is, if you never sell your cards, you're a hoarder. So the question then becomes, what's the difference between a hoarder and a pure collector? And the difference is that a collector curates a PC. A collector has a direction. A collector has an actual, I want to collect these things specifically, and you don't just buy random stuff and then stick it into a box or stick it into your closet. When you're sticking stuff into a box or a closet, or you keep stuff in a vault, again, all this digital stuff where you keep your cards in a vault, you're a hoarder. You're not a collector. A collector appreciates what they've collected. A collector knows what they have. A collector can talk about what they have, or more broadly, they can talk about sports or the history of sports or whatever else they're collecting. You're a Pokemon collector. You are actually doing something. So again, this is the point. Are you an investor? Are you a hoarder? Or are you a collector? I am getting rid of most of my stuff, or I've already done that. I had 8 million cards. I got rid of most of it. It's all gone. Thankfully, it's gone, because I'm not a hoarder anymore. I'm a pure collector. And so I collect specific types of cards. So when people ask me, hey, would you be interested? It's sort of at this point in my journey, no, I'm really not interested in a lot. So when I say that I'm collecting Gary Carter cards, I'm collecting very specific Gary Carter cards. I know some of you have reached out, and I appreciate it. I honestly appreciate it. I love that people are reaching out to me. I love it. But I don't want you all to get disappointed when I'm not that interested. It's not because you don't have good cards. It's not because you're not a good collector. It's not because I have anything against you. It's just that I'm not at the hoarding stage. I'm not in I'm going to buy everything. And so this is the key. This is what people hopefully are starting to understand, is that there are 3 buckets. You have to pick the bucket you're in. So why don't we talk a little bit about this first bucket? Okay, so this investor bucket. What is a sports card investor, or how can you actually invest in sports cards? First of all, there is no such thing as a long-term sports card investor. If you are talking long-term, then you are a hoarder. I know you don't like that. I know, I hear you. I see the comments. You're I'm not a hoarder. You are a hoarder. I don't know what else to tell you. You are a hoarder. You held on to cards for way too long. I saw this on Reddit literally this week. There's a guy up in Canada. He has a whole bunch of cards from the 80s and the 90s, okay? Mostly late 80s, early 90s, all right? All hockey. And his best card, according to him, again, I haven't seen anything, he didn't post any pictures, but according to this guy, his best card is a Carey Price rookie card. Now, I know most of you are probably like, because you don't know hockey, you're like, who the heck is Carey Price? Well, he happened to be the goaltender for the Montreal Canadiens. Now, unfortunately, that's your best card. And he was like, how could that? He's the greatest goalie. And I'm like, you don't really know anything about hockey. If you think that Carey Price is the greatest goalie, I got two Montreal Canadian goalies way better than Carey Price. One is Patrick Waugh, and two is Ken Dryden. So what are you talking about? Like, Carey Price rookie card, I didn't even look it up, but if I had to guess, I would say it might be worth $100. You know, I would think that's reasonable. Maybe it's worth more, but I can't imagine it's worth much more. Again, my point is it's not, and so the guy got upset. He got upset because he's like, you're saying my cards are worthless. Do we really just go from 0 to 60 in this hobby? Is that what this has become? Like, there's no more conversation whatsoever. Like, I didn't say your cards are worthless. I just said that I think you think your cards are worth more than they are. And unfortunately, because of that, if you're trying to sell them to someone, again, you're an investor, then you have to take into consideration, what is someone willing to pay for that stuff? Doesn't mean what it's worth. It means what's someone willing to pay. And I think this is also what people are starting to like have difficulty understanding. The cards aren't worth what someone will pay for it. What they're worth, whatever they're worth. Then you can figure out what someone will actually pay based off the value. If the cards were worthless, then you could never sell them. That's the point. If the cards were worthless, you could never sell them. You could only hope to give them away to somebody else who might like them. The fact is the cards are worth something. The question becomes, what are they worth? And a lot of you in the hobby just don't seem to know what that answer is. So if you want, I would love to be able to start having some people come on this channel and let's go through your collection or your hoard or your investment. And why don't we do like how much I think they're worth. Again, you can do comps. To be honest, do comps. Before we get on, like we can even talk about it. We'll do the top 10 cards in your collection. Okay. And we'll do like how much I think people would pay for your cards. Now, remember, this is the key. This is the key. There are 3 buckets. What would an investor pay? What would a hoarder pay? And what would a pure collector pay? And you as a person who's trying to sell your cards need to know which bucket you're talking to. The hoarder will literally pay anything for your cards. They're sort of the sucker in the room. It is what it is. I know that insults people, and I know people are like, I'm not a hoarder and you're insulting me. I get it. I hear you. I'm not trying to insult you, but I'm just telling you that this is the issue. Now, I did a video back last year on all the mistakes that Fanatics made in 57 minutes. If you haven't seen it, I was going to do the thumbnail up here, but I didn't prepare for it. So you could go back into the archive. If you hit subscribe, go back to the archive. You'll see it. Fanatics. Just put in the search term all the mistakes Fanatics made in 57 minutes. You'll find it. In there, I talk about price points, and this is the good news. So Fanatics finally did something good. Obviously, they didn't listen to my show because I'm too small. But again, this is what I'm talking about. So they made Fat Pack $6.99 and they made hangers $12.99. Okay, this is good news. That's sort of the price point. Now, I wish they would just I wish they would do differentiation in the market. Honestly, I wish they did a retail product and then they did a hobby product. And I wish they really differentiated, but they're not doing that because unfortunately, I think that Fanatics really doesn't care too much. They just want to make as much money as possible without really growing the business like pie. Like they just want to figure out how to maximize profits without being longevity. Because honestly, I think they want to sell Topps at some point. I don't think they want to own Topps long term. I think they want to sell it. I think they want to grow it and then sell it off as an asset to make the money off of that. Now, already Fanatics has, they've 4 or 5x'd Topps since they bought it. They bought Topps for $500 million in 2022. That's according to CNN Business, all right? Michael Rubin just reported, now he doesn't have to, he's a private company, but he did report that they made $2 billion on sports cards. That was last year. $2 billion. They bought Topps for $500 million, and Topps was going out of business. They were nearly bankrupt. So what you all need to understand is that Fanatics basically overprinted cards and then charged you double what Topps was charging, and that's where they get the extra money from, $1.5 billion worth of money. Now, here's the problem. Fanatics as a company, they want to go IPO, and they have 25 times debt. That means that they have like $50 billion in debt. I don't know about you, but that's a lot of debt. Like, that's a ton of debt. They're over leveraged, and there's an issue. And I know Michael Rubin says, well, we could pay down that debt. And it's like, could you really pay down that debt? I mean, if you did, you wouldn't have any money for growth. Like, you kind of have to make a decision. Like, you spent way too much money, you grew way too fast, and therefore you're now on the verge of you can't spend any more money. Like, you can't invest anymore in your company. You've reached your limit, which is why Fanatics keeps cutting back on all these things. Now, I have a whole bunch of ways that Fanatics could make a ton more money and also improve the hobby, but they will never listen to me. It is what it is. But again, I understand the difference between the 3 buckets: the investor, the hoarder, and the collector. The collector only wants what they want. If you fit into that category, you only buy what you want. You don't buy whatever's on the market. You don't go to the store and just buy a whole bunch of retail, hanger boxes, wax boxes, and blasters. You just don't do that. You're a pure collector. You're like, I only want specific cards, so why would I buy wax and get a whole bunch of cards that I don't want? So that's the difference between a pure collector and a hoarder. A hoarder just goes and buys wax because they really don't care. They're just going to rip it, open it, and then put all the cards in a cardboard box till God knows when. And then when they go to try to sell it, because again, they want to pretend that they're they're an investor. Again, they want to pretend they're an investor. That's not happening. You can pretend all you want, but you're not an investor. You're a hoarder. So, just be honest with yourself. You don't have to fool me. You don't have to fool anybody. That's the whole point, is you don't have to fool me. You don't have to fool anybody. You're a hoarder. You bought too many cards. You kept them. You have no idea what you're going to do with them. But anyway, so this guy on Reddit, let's get back to the Reddit story. So he said, I have Carey Price. I have a whole bunch of hockey cards. So, and he's like, if I could get like 500, I'd be happy. And it's like, dude, if you could get 500, I would be shocked. That's what I'm saying. Like, you have probably 500 or 1,000 cards. Your cards are probably only worth about 300. I said, unless you have an Ovechkin rookie and maybe you have a McDavid rookie. But he's like, it was sort of like he didn't go that far into the 2000s. Again, you don't know. Like I said, so unless you have an Ovechkin rookie or a McDavid rookie, your cards aren't even worth $500. So getting $500 would be like, it's a miracle. Why would anyone pay like 150% for your collection? Again, that's my point. I'm hoping that I'm making sense here. The point is, when someone is looking at your collection, if they're an investor, they're going to buy the whole thing. They're going to buy the whole thing, but they want to get it at a real reduced price because they're going to sell it off. They sell everything. If someone's a hoarder, they don't care what you got. They just care about the price. They're going to be like, Okay, so how many cards? 1,000 cards. You want me to spend $500, but they're only worth like $350? Well, I'm not dumb. I'm not going to do that. They'd be like, oh, I'll give you $250 for it because I just want a hoard, and it makes me feel good to buy a hoard. And so that's honestly, I think, what a lot of people in the hobby are hoping for is they're hoping they're going to meet a lot of hoarders who just will buy everything for the maximum amount of money. But that's not how it works. If you're talking to an investor, they will take everything, but they want it for a real cheap price. If you're talking to a collector, okay, so I'm in the third bucket, I don't want it all. I only want specific cards. And because I only want specific cards, I also don't really want to give you what you're asking. And this is sort of now the issue with the hobby is that because people got kind of hyped up over the last few years that everybody that bought cards was going to spend more money on the cards, we've hit the ceiling. So, I said this last week, we've hit the ceiling. So when you buy your cards, like if you're buying rookies, okay, you have 6 weeks to basically make your money. Because at that point, so basically the card comes out, you sell it, so you have your first card, okay? So let's be honest, okay? So it comes out, it's in wax. You open it, you rip it, you get it. You have now a choice. Do I get it graded or do I sell it ungraded? A lot of people are selling stuff ungraded as soon as it comes out of wax, okay? So you're making your money back relatively. Let's say, if you did a blaster box, so that's $12. So your rookie card is like 10. Let's just say a good rookie. So there's only real two rookies this year. There's James Wood and Dylan Cruz. So those cards are like $10. So you sell it for $10. Great. You still lost 2 on your wax. Now, if you get it graded, okay, it might be worth 50. I don't know what, put it in the comments. What is a Dylan Cruz or a James Wood rookie in a PSA 10 or SGC 10 slab? What is it worth? 50? $60? I can't imagine it's worth more than that. These guys are not very good. So, but again, hype is hype. People love the rookies and they like to hype these players up. These are not Hall of Famers. James Wood and Dylan Cruz are not going to the Hall of Fame, so it's just rookie hype. It is what it is. You guys can go all crazy over them, but it's rookie hype. Anyway, so once you get it slabbed, then that person can sell it again. So okay, so that's now 1 month in. So that's 4 weeks in. Okay, so that person made money. Great. The person that buys that slab is not going to be able to make any money unless they could get it for 70% of comps. Because then they can then sell it back for, let's say, 85% of comps. Now, you're not making a lot of money. We're shaving, little bit of profit here and there, but it's not a lot. So anyway, so that person, so we're already now to 6-8 weeks after the products come out. Anybody that buys it next, you're done. That's it. You hit the ceiling. So if you buy the card for 80 or 85% of comps, you're never making that money back. You might break even, maybe, but you're probably going to lose money because if you want to sell it, no one's going to give you more than what you bought it for. And that's the point. That's the point, is that we've hit the ceiling. So a collector that comes to your table is going to be like, yes, I want that specific card. And you're going to say, okay, well, I'm asking X. And they're going to say, well, the comps are. So let's say the James Wood card, okay, it's a PSA 10. It's worth $50. So a collector's going to come and be like, well, the comps are 50. And if you're asking 55, unless there's not that many cards, which we know that's not true, there's thousands of these cards, then the collector's going to be like, I'm not giving you 55 for it. It's only worth 50. And there's millions of these cards, so it's not rare. Why would I pay for you? The competition is too big. So that put price pressure on the sales. That's what sports card dealers and people that are investors need to understand, is that puts pressure on your sales because there's too many cards. There's too many cards. That's all. Like, supply and demand. Supply and demand. That's how this works. That's how this hobby runs. So when you buy that slab, you are the last one in the room. In other words, you are the sucker if you pay too much for the card. That's it. There's nothing else. I don't mean it as an insult that like, oh, you're a sucker. No, you're being played for a sucker. You're being played for a fool. You're not a sucker, which is why you watch this channel. Again, hit the subscribe button because this is the channel for sports and sports card fans. If you want to know how to handle the hobby, how to handle to do all this stuff, hit the subscribe button. We do this show every single week. Okay? Fridays, 6 p.m. on the East Coast, 3 p.m. on the West Coast. So that's it. I mean, that's the question that you need to ask is, which group do you fit in? Are you an investor? Are you a collector? Or are you a hoarder? That's it. That's what I want to know. So, that's it. That's all I want to know. So now we're going to get to your viewer comments. Like I said, I always love the viewer comments, but here we go. All right, here we go. We got 3 comments. This is the first one. It's the longest one. So this one's from Michael. He says, the hardest thing about selling for me, though I'm steadily getting better at it, is just how the nuanced comps actually are. Specifically, the ability to communicate that nuance to a potential buyer in a way that doesn't make it seem like I'm trying to blow hot air just to pump up the price higher than it should be. Example, rare card, Pop 25 PSA 10 of a very hot player I'm trying to sell has 2 recent comps. One is an auction that sold for $2,000 and the other is a buy it now that verified sold for $2,600. The 2 sales occurred within a month. Without mentioning the card, call this a rookie, a very popular player, but it's a niche short print. Many folks don't know it exists unless they PC. In my mind, you would be silly to auction this card and over its entire history, and basically what he's saying. So basically what he's saying is auction prices don't actually reflect what the real value of the card is. And I'm not going to disagree with you, Michael. You're actually true. First of all, unless you have a big following, and this is where social media comes in, unless you have a big following, your auction prices are not really going to work. Now, this is actually one of the things that works on Whatnot. If you have a big following on Whatnot, you might actually get better auction prices on Whatnot. But if you're just a regular person, if you're like me, if I open up a Whatnot store, I'm going to get undercut because I don't have enough people who are watching the sale. And that's the issue. That's where auctions come in. You need enough people who want to bid on the card, and then the card gets bid up. If there's not enough demand, your price is going to get low. Now, for this specific example, and I want to say, Michael, thank you so much for giving a specific example. This is what's awesome about my viewers. You give really good comments with examples. So here's my question. Which one is first? Because you said the sales are within a month. Which one was first, the 2000 sale or the 2600? Because that matters. The order in which those sales happen matters. If the 2600 came after the 2000 sale, then I would say the trend is up and you could absolutely ask for close to 2600. If it's the reverse and the trend is down, then no, I think that you would have to take that in consideration and say that maybe that the hype has cooled down and therefore the card is no longer worth 2600. It's worth between 2 to 2500. That's just the way it is. So it does matter. That's where the comps come in. Now, if you're saying that this specific card is a short print and there are no exact comps, and you're trying to guesstimate, then I think you need other cards in there. I think you need to show. So I think these 2 examples of similar cards, hopefully it's the same card. So you're like, okay, this was a numbered card. And so these are the 2 sales on those. I would look for another card that is similar in the same space. So a short print of a similar type of player or another parallel and of that same player and see where those numbers are. Just so you can get a better sense of where the market is to be like, okay, so that one sold for let's say the first one, the auction sale is $2,000. Let's say the second sale is buy it now over $2,600. Okay, so the card's closer to $2,600, but maybe there's another parallel that sold for $2,500 and another one that sold for $2,400. Okay, so now you can get a greater sense. To be honest, I would say 26 is on the high end, so you're probably not going to get 2,600. But I think 2,400 is probably reasonable given those data points, given that example. Hopefully that makes sense. And that's how I start to comp cards, is because I want to see enough sales data to be like, okay, this seems to be where the card is at. Now, if the card is worth 2,400, you might not be able to get 2,400 unless it's a very hot player and there's a lot of hype around it. Because in that case, and again, I just did this in the video, the investor might take a flyer on that, but they're not going to pay 2,400 for it. They're going to want it for 21 or 2,200 or even probably 2,000. They're going to ask for that level of a discount because they're an investor. They're going to want to make money on it. Now, a hoarder probably will pay 2,400, and a collector is going to really look at it and say, like, if how short print is it? How rare is it? Will I ever find it again? In your case, to be honest, I think that the pure collector would probably pay the most for that card, given if there's enough hype and popularity behind that player. Again, I'm probably guessing it's a Paul Skeens. And there is a lot of Paul Skeens fans out there. So I would say that a pure collector would probably pay you the most. Just from my experience, I would say that. So anyway, thanks, Michael. That was an awesome comment. Let's get to number 2. This is from Zach Pierce. Not all cards are the same. I own minty vintage pieces I could sell today if I need to and get pretty close to full value. Where some cards are tougher to move, if you need to sell today, you're probably selling to a flipper offering 60 to 70%. Okay, that is a great comment. There's a lot to unpack though, and I want to make sure that everybody that's watching understands exactly what Zach is saying in reality. Because this is it. This is the hobby in a nutshell. Not every player sells. That's it. If you don't get that one takeaway, then you're missing the point of the hobby. Again, we have to think about the 3 buckets. There's investors, there's hoarders, and there's pure collectors. The investor is just going to buy everything, and they're going to be able to sell exactly like you said. They will buy those top cards, those top players for top dollar. They'll give you 75 to maybe 80% of comps. That's just the way it is. And modern cards kind of work that way. That's what investors do. Dealers will give you 75 to 80% of comps on the most expensive stuff. But then everything else, you're not getting 60 to 70% comps. I'm sorry. If you admit that those cards are harder to sell, you're looking closer to 40 to 50% of comps. And in some cases, if you're looking at just bulk, you are not getting that kind of return. Like for anybody, I had some people, because I did a video with, or I did a react for Chris Sewell, okay, the baseball card investor, dealer, collector, in that order, right? So you guys know him. So if you're trying to sell base to him, you're selling at 5 or 10 cents a card, depending on the era. So if it's real old vintage, he's giving you 10 cents a card. If it's more modern, let's say junk wax to present, he's only paying 5 cents for bulk, for basically common cards. 5 cents. That's not 40% of comps. Like the card may be worth 75 cents, but he's paying a nickel. So remember, understand, like you're not getting the kind of value that you think you're getting. That's not the real world. And that's the issue. The hoarder believes that everything they own is just worth a lot of money and they can get that money back. The truth is you can't. And Zach has even said that. There are certain cards that he knows, I could get a certain amount. The other cards, Zach, you cannot get that amount. That's the issue. is that you're way too overestimating what you can get. I am telling you that you should really have in the back of your mind that you could probably get 40 to 50% of comps, not 60 to 70%. If it's stuff that you know is not hot, you cannot get 50 to 60%. It's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. That's the reality. All right. Let's get to the last comment. This one is Furious Weasel. I just love that name. Thanks, Furious, to always keep making comments. Seriously. All right, at 21. So this is in the lessons learned video, which was from last week. So at 21. So because I love that he puts the time code. It's awesome. All right. You're not joking. I made an offer on a Luka card, and not only was it rejected, but he raised the price another $100. Instead of selling it right now for a fair market price, right at the peak of the hype, he'd rather sit on eBay at a price that won't sell. I mean, Furious, you are dead right. That's it. That's the problem. That's the problem. I don't know. I don't get it. There is a mindset in this hobby right now that you can just keep getting better money. Like there's a FOMO on I'm leaving money on the table. That's the FOMO. The fear of not getting the most amount of money. That's a bad mindset. I'm just going to say that. It's just a bad way of thinking about sports cards. If someone is offering you good, fair value for a card, if you do the comps, like again, I don't know which card because Luka's got 7 million cards. Like, guys, I think you need to understand in Ultra Modern, all of these players have so many freaking rookie cards. So it's like you also need to understand that whatever card you're buying, it's not rare. Like, I don't care that it was numbered to 25. There's 15 versions of the number to 25. The only ones that are rare, like legit at this point, Ultra Modern, the only cards that may retain value are patch autos. If the patch is game used, okay, so if it's game worn, game used patches with autos, that's it. That's the modern day, rarity. That's the vintage market. Okay, so in 50 years from now, this is the only cards that people are going to be really excited about. It's just the way it is. So any base, any parallel, any numbers is just for your collection, and you're the only one that appreciates it. That's it. You're a pure collector. You appreciate it, therefore you place value on it. No one else does. You're not going to get your money back. Hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm trying to be as helpful as possible. Hit the subscribe button because we do this show every single week. This is the channel for sports and sports cards fans. This is Doc saying, have a great weekend.